Deep in a stone older than empires, a message was carved by a hand we will never know. These cryptic symbols etched onto ancient megaliths are a silent language from a world long lost. We are about to journey across the globe to uncover 30 of the strangest examples, from spirals that map the stars to figures that defy all explanation. By the end, you will possess a new understanding of the brilliant and mysterious minds that shaped our prehistoric past. We will confront carvings that some believe depict advanced technology and symbols so universal they hint at a connected ancient world. What single mystery from the deep past most captivates your own imagination? One symbol stands out for its sheer complexity and cosmic purpose. In the rolling green hills of Ireland, the entrance to the massive Newgrange tomb is guarded by a single colossal stone. Etched into its surface is a breathtaking labyrinth of spirals, a swirling vortex of lines carved with incredible precision over 5,000 years ago. The most famous of these is the triple spiral, a motif of 3 interconnected coils that seems to pulse with a hidden energy. This is not random graffiti. The entire tomb is a machine built of earth and stone, designed so that for a few precious minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a narrow beam of sunlight shoots through a roof box and illuminates this very chamber, touching these very spirals with golden light. What were the builders trying to say? One powerful theory is that the spiral represents the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, with the sun's rebirth at the solstice mirroring the human soul's journey. Others see it as a map of the treacherous path to the afterlife, a guide for the dead to navigate the unknown. Some researchers even propose it is an ancient star chart, a coded diagram of the heavens. As the solstice light travels across that dark chamber, it brings the stone to life, suggesting these people saw no separation between the earth below and the cosmos above. Their entire world was connected by symbols we are only just beginning to decipher. Far from the spirals of Ireland, in the sun-scorched highlands of Turkey, stands a sight that shatters our understanding of human history. Göbekli Tepe is staggeringly ancient, built over 11,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers, long before the invention of writing or the wheel. Its most defining features are its massive, T-shaped pillars arranged in great stone circles. And on these pillars, a bizarre symbol is carved again and again. It looks unmistakably like a modern handbag, a stylized pouch with a curved handle. These objects are not left lying on the ground. They are held in the hands of carved humanoid figures, as if they are items of immense importance. Why would a culture of supposed hunter-gatherers, who should have been focused on basic survival, repeatedly carve such a specific and sophisticated object? The mainstream archaeological interpretation is practical. It could represent a simple bag for carrying seeds, a fundamental tool for a society on the cusp of agriculture. Perhaps it was a standard unit of measure, a stone weight used in trade. Alternatively, it might be a purely symbolic container holding not seeds but cosmic knowledge or spiritual power. Some researchers point to its resemblance to the ancient Egyptian ankh, a symbol of life, or to similar bag-like objects depicted in Mesopotamian and Mesoamerican art, suggesting a shared symbolic language across the ancient world. This has led to more speculative theories. Ancient astronaut proponents argue it represents a portable power source or a technological device, a gift from advanced visitors. Others see it as a symbolic representation of the pineal gland, the so-called third eye, suggesting these carvers possessed advanced esoteric knowledge of human consciousness. The truth is, we see these handbags held by faceless beings frozen in time, performing some unknown ritual. These carvings force us to ask a profound question. Were these just primitive people we are looking at, or were they the inheritors of a forgotten wisdom, carefully etching a message about the tools of creation itself onto pillars meant to last for an eternity? This same theme of a cosmic cycle carved in stone appears again, but in a far simpler and more widespread form. Across Europe, from the standing stones of the British Isles to the rock shelters of the Mediterranean, you find a symbol of profound elegance. It is a cross perfectly enclosed within a circle, a design we now call the sun cross or the wheel cross. Its variations are endless. Sometimes the cross arms are simple lines. Other times they are broader, creating a wheel-like pattern with 4 distinct spokes. In some carvings, a dot marks the very center of the cross, as if pinpointing a pivotal, unmoving point in the cosmos. Why was this specific geometric shape so universally important to these ancient cultures? Its most compelling interpretation is as a solar symbol. Imagine the circle as the sun itself, and the 4 arms of the cross marking its key positions in the sky throughout the day. It represents the sun's journey from its rising in the east to its zenith at noon, to its setting in the west, and finally its passage through the unseen underworld at night before being reborn at dawn. But the meaning expands. It also maps the year itself, with the 4 arms perfectly symbolizing the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes, the 4 pivotal moments that define our seasons. This one simple symbol could encapsulate the entire celestial dance that governed their world, the turning of the great wheel of time. This ancient understanding was so powerful that it was never truly lost. Centuries later, when Christianity spread through these same lands, the symbol was seamlessly adopted, evolving into the Celtic cross we recognize today, where the circle now represents God's eternal love or the halo of Christ. But its origins are far older, etched into megaliths by people who looked up at the same sun and sought to capture its eternal, life-giving cycle in a circle and a cross. Across the Atlantic, a different kind of serpent slumbers in the Ohio River Valley. Here, the earth itself has been sculpted into the form of a colossal, undulating snake. The Great Serpent Mound is a breathtaking effigy earthwork over 1,300 feet long, its body winding in 7 great curves along a high ridge. But nearby, on the walls of caves and on portable stone tablets, we find petroglyphs that echo this grand design. These carvings are not the detailed, scaled serpents of later art. They are powerful, meandering lines, sometimes a single fluid curve, other times a zigzag pattern that captures the essence of a snake in motion. Why would an ancient culture invest such immense effort to build and to carve this singular creature? The answer seems written in the stars. The serpent's body aligns with breathtaking precision to celestial events. Its tightly coiled tail points directly to the summer solstice sunset, while its open jaws are aligned to capture the winter solstice sunrise. Some researchers see the entire winding form as a map of the constellation Draco, the dragon, as it would have circled the pole star thousands of years ago. In the cosmology of many Native American peoples, the serpent was a being of immense power, a bridge between worlds. It was associated with water and rain, essential for life, and also with the underworld, a realm of ancestors and potent forces. This was not a creature of evil, but a vital part of a living, breathing universe. Seeing the serpent from the air, its massive form perfectly integrated with the landscape, forces a humbling realization. This was not mere decoration. It was a sacred text written upon the earth, a permanent reminder that the cycles of the sky above and the energies of the earth below were one and the same. While the serpent aligns with the stars, other symbols invite us to look much closer into the very skin of the stone. Scattered across the Atlantic coast of Europe, from the wild moors of Scotland to the sun-baked rocks of Iberia, lies one of the most common yet utterly perplexing megalithic puzzles. These are the cup and ring marks. At their simplest, they are a single cup-shaped depression, painstakingly pecked into the rock. But often, this simple cup is surrounded by a series of perfect concentric circles, like ripples from a stone dropped in water, sometimes with a single channel or groove carving its way outwards through the rings. They are profoundly abstract, a geometric language without an obvious key. The sheer effort to create them is staggering. Using only a stone hammer, artisans spent countless hours pounding these intricate patterns into granite and schist, one of the hardest materials on Earth. Why would they invest so much labor into something with no apparent practical use? One enduring theory suggests they are maps of a different kind. Could these concentric circles represent constellations or star systems, a celestial chart carved for initiates? Perhaps they were territorial markers denoting clan lands or sacred meeting places, their complexity signaling the importance of the site. Another fascinating idea connects them to altered states of consciousness. The repetitive, spiraling patterns are strikingly similar to the phosphine imagery humans see when entering trance states, the geometric shapes generated by our own brains under stress or with the aid of ritual substances. In this view, the rock surface becomes a portal, a physical representation of the journey into a spiritual realm. The frustrating truth is that we may never know for certain, partly because these carvings are so incredibly difficult to date. They exist on stones that were often reused over millennia, their original context lost to time. Modern macro photography reveals their true artistry, showing the individual hammer strikes and the stunning precision of the rings, worn smooth by thousands of years of rain and wind. When you see a map of their distribution, a dotted line of these enigmatic symbols appears all along the western edge of the ancient world, a shared tradition that hints at a connected cultural coastline, humming with ideas we can no longer hear. But perhaps no single carving has sparked more modern debate than an image hidden deep within an Egyptian temple. In the crypts of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a stone relief depicts a scene that looks shockingly out of place. A massive, elongated object shaped like a slender vase is held aloft by a pillar. Inside this bulb-like container, a snake stretches its body along the entire length. A cord carved as a distinct twisting line seems to attach to the base of the object, while a two-armed figure stands gripping the snake, as if steadying the entire apparatus. To many eyes today, this is unmistakable. It looks like a giant, ancient light bulb with the snake representing the glowing filament. Mainstream Egyptology offers a very different and deeply symbolic interpretation. They identify the object not as a bulb but as a lotus flower, a plant of profound religious significance. In this reading, the emerging snake represents the god Harsomptus, a manifestation of the creator deity, being born from the primordial waters symbolized by the lotus. The entire scene is a complex illustration of creation, fertility, and the moment a god comes into being, a story told through the natural world. The so-called cable is likely a symbolic serpent itself, or a ritual staff, and the figure is a priest or deity facilitating this divine birth. Yet, the visual similarity is so striking that it has fueled a persistent alternative theory. Proponents of the ancient electricity idea point to artifacts like the Baghdad battery, a clay jar from 2,000 years ago containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod that could theoretically produce a small electric charge if filled with an acidic liquid. They argue that if such technology existed, the Dendera relief could be a schematic of a larger, more powerful device, an electric lamp used to illuminate the pitch-black temple crypts. Animated reconstructions based on this theory show the bulb glowing with an otherworldly light powered by some lost generator. The truth remains etched in stone, open to interpretation. Was this simply a beautiful and sophisticated metaphor for spiritual creation, using imagery that coincidentally mirrors our modern technology? Or does it hint at a forgotten chapter of scientific understanding, a literal light in the darkness that we have since misinterpreted as purely myth? The relief forces us to confront the possibility that our ancestors' symbolic language might have described realities we are only now rediscovering. Long before the pyramids rose in Egypt, a forgotten culture in the fertile valleys of southeastern Europe was etching a mystery into clay. The Vinca people, thriving over 7,000 years ago, left behind a staggering legacy not of grand stone monuments, but of thousands of small clay artifacts. Their figurines, spindle whorls, and tablets are inscribed with a bewildering array of symbols. We see simple lines and crosses, but also complex combinations that look startlingly like pictographs. There are bird-like shapes, branching forms that resemble plants, and grids that look like rudimentary maps. What makes these markings so revolutionary is their sheer age. They appear centuries before the earliest known Sumerian cuneiform, challenging the very cradle of writing as we know it. The central question that divides scholars is profound. Are we looking at the world's first writing system? The symbols show signs of standardization and repetition across a wide geographical area, suggesting a shared system of communication. Some researchers believe these marks represent a true script, a way to record ownership, trade transactions, or even simple narratives. Yet, other experts argue this is not writing, but a sophisticated form of proto-writing. In this view, the symbols conveyed specific meanings, perhaps denoting a family lineage, a religious concept, or the contents of a pot, but they did not represent the sounds of a spoken language. They were a code, not a text. Another school of thought sees them as purely ritualistic, sacred marks used only by a priestly class for ceremonial purposes. Or, at their most mundane, they could simply be the potter's marks of individual artisans, a primitive brand name stamped onto their work. The truth may lie in a combination of all these ideas. A single artifact might bear a sequence of symbols that could be read as the name of a deity, the maker of the object, and the clan it belonged to, all without forming a single phonetic sentence. When you see these symbols projected alongside early Sumerian or Egyptian hieroglyphs, the visual parallels are haunting. They share a common graphic language of abstraction, a human urge to condense complex ideas into a simple mark. The Vinci did not build in stone, but they inscribed their world on clay, leaving behind a silent, tantalizing question. Did writing invent itself multiple times across the ancient world, only for its earliest whisper in Europe to fade into an enigma? On a remote island in the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean, a mystery was carved not in stone but in wood. Easter Island, famous for its silent, towering moai statues, holds another secret, one far more fragile. These are the Rongorongo tablets, intricately inscribed wooden artifacts covered in a script that no one alive today can read. The glyphs themselves are a mesmerizing menagerie of forms. You see stylized human figures in postures of reverence or action, bizarre bird men with long, curved beaks, and geometric shapes that hint at a complex, structured language. The way it was written is just as unique as the symbols themselves. The text is written in what scholars call reverse boustrophedon. This sounds complicated, but it simply means the scribe would carve one line of text from left to right, then physically rotate the tablet 180 degrees to read and write the next line, also from left to right. It is a dizzying, intellectual dance for the reader, a system found nowhere else on Earth. The true tragedy of Rongorongo is that its meaning was so completely and utterly lost. In the 1860s, Peruvian slave raiders attacked the island, carrying off or killing nearly all of the learned elders, the priests and chiefs who held the knowledge of the script within their memories. When Christian missionaries arrived later, they discovered the tablets but found no one left who could interpret them. The key had been broken, and the door to this ancient knowledge was slammed shut forever. So what secrets do these wooden tablets hold? The theories are as compelling as they are unproven. Some researchers believe Rongorongo is a form of genealogical record, listing the sacred lineage of chiefs and kings, tracing their power back to the gods. Others propose it contains the great creation chants and epic poems of the Rapa Nui people, stories of how their world was born from the sea. Given the islanders' incredible feats of navigation across thousands of miles of open ocean, a strong case is made for astronomical content. The tablets could be complex calendars, charting the movements of the sun, moon, and stars to guide their voyages and mark their rituals. Animated sequences bring this lost process to life, showing a master scribe carefully incising each symbol, his hands moving in a rhythm known only to his people, the tablet turning like the cycles of time itself. We see the glyphs not as static art, but as a flowing narrative, a captured voice speaking from a culture that carved giants from mountains, yet whose most intimate thoughts are locked away in a beautiful, silent code. High on the wall of a 16th-century cathedral, a time traveler seems to be clinging to the stone. This is the Salamanca astronaut, a figure carved with a detailed helmet, a ribbed, pressurized-looking suit, and what appear to be breathing hoses connecting its torso to a backpack. It is an image of such jarring modernity that it feels like a glitch in history, an artifact from the future dropped into the Spanish Renaissance. The explanation, however, is wonderfully straightforward and entirely human. During a restoration of the cathedral in 1992, as part of the celebrations for the 500th anniversary of Columbus's voyage to the Americas, the stonemasons were tasked with recreating the damaged sculptural decorations. Following a tradition that allows restorers to leave a contemporary mark, they chose to include this astronaut, a symbol of their own era's great voyage of discovery. Before and after photographs of the facade clearly show the new addition amidst the traditional figures of saints and monsters. It was a deliberate, whimsical act, a nod to human exploration from the age of sail to the age of space. So why does this modern addition continue to fuel such intense speculation about ancient astronauts and lost knowledge? The answer lies in a powerful cognitive bias, a trick our minds play when we see the familiar in the ancient. We are pattern-seeking creatures, and when we encounter a carving that so perfectly matches our own technology, the leap to an extraordinary explanation is immediate and thrilling. It feels more satisfying to believe a civilization possessed secret knowledge than to accept a simple, charming anecdote from a recent restoration. The stonemason's intent was not to deceive, but to participate in the long tradition of artisans leaving their mark, connecting their present moment to the enduring stone. Yet the astronaut's persistence in popular mythology speaks to a deeper longing. It represents our desire to find ourselves in the past, to see proof that our modern world was not just anticipated, but perhaps even preordained or visited. That little figure, forever climbing the cathedral wall, is a mirror. It shows us less about the secrets of the ancients and more about our own endless fascination with the idea that we are not the first to look up at the stars and dream of voyage. Deep within the dark, twisting corridors of a Peruvian temple, stone itself seems to writhe with a supernatural life. At the heart of the Chavin de Huanta complex, a monolith known as the Lanzon stands like a frozen lightning bolt, its surface a chaotic tapestry of carved beings. Jaguars snarl with serpentine hair, human figures sprout fangs and claws, and eyes peer from impossible angles, all woven together in a single, intertwined nightmare. This is not mere decoration. It is a visual representation of shamanic transformation, a guide to the moment when a human soul sheds its form to merge with the power of a jaguar or the wisdom of a snake. The key to this transformation is believed to have been a potent brew of psychoactive substances. Archaeologists have found snuffed trays and decorated containers for the San Pedro cactus, a plant containing mescaline. The carvings themselves may depict the very visions these substances induced, a world where the boundaries between species dissolved and the spirit realm became terrifyingly real. But the experience was not just visual. The temple engineers were masters of acoustics. They designed a network of water channels that would amplify sound in specific ways, and when a conch shell trumpet was blown at one entrance, its roar would reverberate through the stone halls, becoming the voice of the gods themselves. Imagine an initiate, their mind altered by sacred plants, navigating these dark, echoing passages. The ground vibrates with a deep, otherworldly drone. They turn a corner and are confronted by the Lanzon, its hybrid monsters seeming to move in the flickering torchlight. This was a multi-sensory ritual machine where sound, sight, and altered consciousness fused to create an unforgettable encounter with the divine. The symbols were not just seen, they were felt and heard, a direct line to a pantheon of shape-shifting deities that demanded reverence and perhaps a sacrifice to maintain the balance of the world. A different kind of portal awaits in the mist-shrouded valleys of the Caucasus Mountains. Here, between the Black and Caspian Seas, stand thousands of dolmens, massive stone structures built with breathtaking precision. Each one is a house of stone, its walls formed from colossal slabs, with a near-perfect circular hole carved directly through the front slab, a portal to the world within. But it is the symbols carved around these portals that truly captivate. Spirals unwind with geometric perfection, and swastika-like patterns, wheels with bent arms, rotate with a powerful, dynamic energy. These are not crude scratches, they are deeply etched, deliberate symbols placed with clear intention by a people whose name and language are completely lost to us. Who were these master builders, and what message did they mean to send through the millennia? The most compelling theory connects these symbols directly to the great cycles of nature. The spiral seen across the ancient world likely represented the sun, its life-giving power, and the eternal cycle of rebirth. The swastika, an ancient symbol stripped of its modern infamy, was for millennia a near-universal emblem of the sun in motion, a wheel spinning through the four seasons or the daily journey across the sky. Carved around the very entrance to a tomb, these symbols could have been a powerful prayer for the soul's journey, a hope that the deceased would join the sun in its eternal circuit. Alternatively, they may have served as protective sigils, their potent, rotating forms designed to ward off malevolent spirits from entering the sacred space within the dolmen. When you see these Caucasus spirals and sun wheels projected alongside those from ancient Europe, Anatolia, and even the Indus Valley, the visual connection is startling. It is as if a shared symbolic vocabulary was humming across the continents, adapted by different hands but speaking to the same fundamental human awe of the cosmos. Footage from these remote sites reveals the sheer isolation of the dolmens, standing silent in alpine meadows and dense forests, their circular portals staring out like unblinking eyes. Detailed shots of the carvings show the weather-worn but still confident lines, the absolute certainty of the artisan's hand. These stone houses were not just tombs. They were way stations for the soul, marked with the most powerful symbols their builders knew, ensuring the dead remained connected to the great turning wheel of life. These faces stare back at us from the deepest recesses of prehistory, and they look nothing like the simple stick figures we were taught to expect. In a cave known as La Marche in France, archaeologists uncovered a collection of over 150 engraved stones, and the images they bear are startling. We see detailed, almost portrait-like human faces, complete with distinct expressions, hairstyles, and what appear to be tailored clothing and headdresses. This is not the abstract animal art of Lascaux. This is art from the Magdalenian period, roughly 15,000 years ago, that feels intimately personal, capturing individuals with a sophistication that shatters our image of the brutish caveman. The level of detail is breathtaking. One figure seems to wear a hooded garment, another has carefully rendered facial hair, and many have a sense of posture and personality that is completely unique for its time. It is as if the artist was not just depicting a generic human form, but was trying to capture the essence of a specific person, a leader, a shaman, or perhaps a revered ancestor. This discovery was so revolutionary that it sparked immediate and fierce debate. Could these incredibly advanced carvings truly be the work of Paleolithic people? Skeptics argued the lines were too fine, the human forms too naturalistic, suggesting they might be a modern hoax. Yet, meticulous analysis of the engraving techniques, the mineral deposits within the lines, and the artifact's secure context within the cave layers has convinced many leading experts of their authenticity. If these stones are genuine, their implications are profound. They suggest a society 15 millennia ago that had a complex understanding of individual identity. These were not just anonymous members of a hunter-gatherer band. They were people who saw themselves as individuals worthy of portraiture. The clothing and adornments hint at social structure, at roles and statuses within the group. Were these carvings a form of ancestral veneration, a gallery of the honored dead? Or were they a practical tool for storytelling, a visual record of the tribe's history and heroes passed down through generations? High-resolution scans of the stones reveal the incredible skill of the artist's hand, each deliberate stroke in the limestone capturing a fold of cloth or the set of a jaw. When you look into these ancient faces, you are not looking at a primitive sketch. You are meeting a gaze across 15,000 years, confronting a humanity that is instantly recognizable and deeply complex. These silent stone armies at Karnak stretch for miles across the French landscape, a grid of thousands of menhirs standing in eerie, parallel rows. Yet their greatest secrets are not in their vast numbers, but in the intimate messages carved onto their surfaces. Scattered among these granite giants are menhirs etched with a recurring set of symbols. You see stylized crooks resembling a shepherd's staff but carved with a stark, powerful authority. There are polished stone axes depicted not as tools for chopping wood, but as ceremonial objects, their blades gleaming with symbolic power. And coiling around the bases of these stones are undulating serpents, their sinuous bodies a familiar echo of the earth serpent we encountered in distant Ohio. What were these specific motifs trying to communicate across the centuries? One compelling theory is that they represent the very fabric of an emerging society. The crook could symbolize the leader, the herder of people, while the axe might represent the warrior or the judge, the enforcer of order. Together, they could tell a story of social stratification, of a community moving beyond simple survival and defining roles of power and responsibility. Alternatively, these may be depictions of deities, a pantheon of gods and goddesses whose attributes were the crook of guidance and the axe of protection. The serpent, ever present, likely retained its role as a chthonic symbol, a guardian of the underworld and the ancestral knowledge buried within the earth. These carvings transform the alignments from a mere collection of stones into a narrative landscape. Were these processional avenues where rituals were performed in front of these carved totems, each clan or family having their own symbolized menhir? The sheer scale of the sight, best appreciated from a drone's eye view soaring over the relentless lines of stone, suggests a purpose of cosmic importance. Some researchers argue the entire complex is a gigantic astronomical observatory, its rows aligned to the sun and moon. In this light, the carvings could be ritual markers, indicating where specific ceremonies tied to the solstices or lunar cycles should take place. A close-up on one of these carved menhirs reveals the painstaking pecking technique, each blow of a stone hammer a deliberate act of dedication. The crook, the axe, and the serpent were not idle doodles. They were the sacred vocabulary of a people trying to carve their understanding of power, both human and divine, into the unyielding granite, leaving a permanent record of a world governed by symbols we can still see but no longer fully understand. Just a short walk from the great tomb of Newgrange, another stone whispers an even more complex cosmic secret. The entrance stone to the North Passage tomb is a breathtaking spectacle of organized chaos, a masterpiece of megalithic art that covers the entire surface of a massive curved stone in a dense tapestry of carved genius. Where Newgrange displays the powerful, singular triple spiral, North presents a universe in miniature. Its surface is a labyrinth of interlocking spirals, some coiled tight like springs, others unfurling in great arcs. These are connected by precise, sharp-angled zigzag lines and framed by rows of perfect diamond shapes, or lozenges, creating a visual rhythm that is both hypnotic and deeply orderly. The sheer density of the design is staggering, a testament to an artist who worked with a vision so clear that not a single inch of the stone was left to chance. The technical skill required to execute this with stone tools is almost beyond comprehension, each line pecked into the hard granite with unerring confidence. What could this geometric frenzy possibly mean? Many researchers see it as a cosmogram, a literal map of the universe as its builders perceived it. The central, dominant spirals could represent the great, swirling forces of creation or the core of our galaxy. The radiating zigzags might map the paths of comets or lightning, the powerful connections between the heavens and the earth. The recurring lozenges, a symbol found from ancient Turkey to the British Isles, are often interpreted as seeds or eyes, representing the potential for life and the all-seeing knowledge of the cosmos. This was not random decoration, it was a deliberate, encoded model of reality. When you see an annotated diagram breaking down the stone's patterns, the logic emerges from the apparent chaos. The design is divided into registers with different types of spirals governing different sections, all connected by a flowing, continuous line that guides your eye across the entire surface. It feels less like a picture and more like a schematic, a blueprint for existence. Compared to the solar-focused symbolism of Newgrange, Noth feels more comprehensive, attempting to capture not just the sun's journey, but the entire structure of the world, both seen and unseen. This was a form of knowledge preservation, a sacred science carved in stone for eternity, ensuring that their understanding of the cosmos would outlast their own fragile lives and speak to generations they would never know. But the silent, stoic faces of the Moai are only half the story. Turn these colossal giants around or explore the volcanic rock of the island's quarries, and you will find their bodies covered in a secret language of symbols. These are the Moai petroglyphs, and they reveal a society obsessed with the powerful forces of life, death, and divine power. One of the most common symbols is the Comri, a simple, elegant carving shaped like a vulva. This was not a vulgar graffito. In a society perpetually balancing on the knife's edge of survival, the Comri was a profound symbol of fertility and the creation of life, a desperate and hopeful prayer for the continuation of the clan, etched directly onto the stones that represented their ancestors. Alongside these life symbols, you find the staring face of Makemake, the chief creator god of the Rapa Nui pantheon. His wide-eyed, skeletal visage is carved everywhere, a constant reminder of the divine presence that watched over their fragile world. But the most dramatic symbol of all is the birdman or Tangata Monu. This figure, part human and part sooty tern, is the key to understanding the island's later history. When the society that erected the Moai began to falter, a new, fierce cult arose centered on this deity. Each year, champions from competing clans would undertake a terrifying ritual. They would scale the sheer cliffs of the Ronokau volcano, then swim through shark-infested waters to a small offshore islet. Their goal was to find the first egg laid by a sooty tern that season. The first man to retrieve the egg and swim back safely was declared the birdman for the year. His clan leader granted sacred political and spiritual authority. This was not just a sport, it was a ritual that mirrored their creation myths, a reenactment of the god Makemake taking the form of a bird to create humanity. Visualize this dramatic competition, the sheer human endurance required, all for the power contained within a single, fragile egg. These petroglyphs, therefore, are not random decorations. They are a narrative. The Moai themselves represent an earlier, ancestor-focused power structure, their backs carved with the very symbols of the life force they were meant to channel. The later birdman carvings tell a story of a society in transformation, shifting its devotion from massive stone ancestors to a more immediate, brutal competition for the favor of the gods. Together, they show us a culture far more complex and adaptable than the solitary heads ever could, a people constantly negotiating their relationship with the divine in a world of limited resources. These Maltese temples are built from colossal blocks of Globigerina limestone, a stone so soft you can scratch it with your fingernail. Yet within these ancient halls we find carvings that are anything but crude. The walls of Haga Kim and Mnajdra are adorned with a unique artistic language, a series of spirals, pitted designs, and soft, flowing curves that feel almost organic, as if the stone itself has sprouted these patterns. This is a stark contrast to the sharp angles and geometric grids seen in other megalithic art. Here, the dominant forms are gentle swirls and deep, drilled dots that cover entire altar stones in a dense, textured tapestry. What do these soft, repetitive forms represent? The most prominent theory points to a powerful cult of a mother goddess, a divine figure of fertility. The swelling curves and spirals could easily be seen as abstract representations of the female form, celebrating the life-giving power that sustained their agricultural society. Others interpret these patterns as a Stone Age tree of life, with the spiraling motif symbolizing the endless cycle of growth, death, and rebirth seen in nature. The pitted designs, sometimes called cupules, might represent seeds, stars, or even raindrops, each tiny depression a prayer for abundance from the earth or the heavens. This obsession with fertility makes a haunting kind of sense when you consider the temple's precise alignments with the solstices and equinoxes, ensuring that the sun's life-giving light would penetrate the deepest, most sacred chambers at the most potent moments of the year. Scattered across the Maltese landscape, another profound mystery runs parallel to these temples. The so-called cart ruts are a network of deep, parallel grooves cut into the bedrock, winding across hills and even disappearing beneath the sea. Their purpose is completely unknown. Were they simply tracks for sleds transporting heavy stones worn down over centuries? Or could they have held a deeper, symbolic meaning, perhaps representing rivers of life, spiritual pathways connecting the temples, or even a primitive map of constellations mirrored on the ground? When you see aerial footage of these ruts intersecting and flowing over the terrain, and then see close-ups of the swirling temple carvings, a fascinating possibility emerges. Perhaps the same worldview that produced the soft, organic curves on the altars also shaped these mysterious tracks on the landscape, a culture that saw the entire island as a living body, inscribed with symbols of creation and sustenance. The temples were not isolated sanctuaries. They were the vibrant, decorated heart of a ritual landscape, their walls whispering a soft, curvaceous language of life that we have only just begun to hear. Within the shadowed chambers of Tarxian, one altar stone commands attention. Its surface is a symphony of stone, carved with a series of deep, interlocking spirals that seem to pulse with a quiet, hypnotic energy. The grooves are not shallow scratches but deeply excavated channels, carved with such unwavering precision that the lines flow in perfect, continuous curves. This was no casual act of decoration. The sheer physical effort to carve these flowing patterns into the soft limestone, using only stone and antler tools, speaks of a profound and sacred purpose. This altar stood as the ritual heart of the entire temple complex, a focal point where the community's most vital ceremonies unfolded. Archaeologists have found the remains of sacrificial animals and evidence of liquid offerings here, suggesting this was a place where life was given to sustain life. In this context, the spirals take on a powerful, dual meaning. They could represent the very cycle the ritual was meant to enact. The continuous, unbroken line embodies the eternal loop of life, death, and rebirth, a visual prayer that the sacrifice of one life would ensure the continued fertility of the land and the people. But look closer at the way the spirals draw your eye inward toward their hidden centers. They may have been seen as portals, vortices of spiritual energy through which prayers and offerings could travel to the realm of the gods, or through which divine power could flow back into the world. Imagine the scene in flickering torchlight. A priest stands before this altar, the deep carvings casting long, dancing shadows. The spiral patterns would have appeared to move, to breathe as the flames leap. The act of sacrifice set against this swirling backdrop becomes a direct transaction with the cosmos, a desperate and hopeful attempt to maintain the balance of the world through a symbol that represented its eternal, turning nature. Deep in the jungles of Costa Rica, a different kind of perfection emerges from the earth. The famous stone spheres are marvels of geometry, nearly perfect balls carved from granodiorite by a culture lost to time. But a handful of these enigmatic orbs hold an extra layer of mystery. Their flawless surfaces are interrupted by precise carvings, sharp triangles, parallel grooves, and long, straight lines that cut across the curvature. These are not the chaotic scratches of nature. They are deliberate marks placed with clear intent on some of the most perfectly shaped stones the ancient world ever produced. Why would a society capable of creating such flawless forms then choose to deliberately mark them? The theories about the spheres themselves are as varied as the jungle is dense. Some researchers believe they were astronomical tools, their alignments mapping the paths of the sun or stars, acting as a giant celestial calendar for an agricultural society. Others see them as the ultimate status symbols, positioned around the homes of chiefs to project power and authority, their perfect shape demonstrating a command over the very elements. A more poetic idea suggests they were physical representations of celestial bodies, miniature moons or planets brought down to Earth. The carved lines add a new dimension to these theories. Perhaps they were clan markings, identifying which family or group owned or dedicated a particular sphere. The straight lines and grooves could have served as directional indicators, citing lines to be aligned with other spheres or landmarks in complex formations we can no longer see. Imagine these spheres arranged in their original groupings, patterns now scattered by centuries of farming and looting. Computer-generated reconstructions can bring these ancient arrangements back to life, showing lines of spheres leading to ceremonial centers or circles of them pointing toward the horizon. In these digital recreations, the carved pattern suddenly makes sense. A triangle on one sphere might align perfectly with a groove on another, both pointing toward the rising sun on a solstice. They transform from isolated artifacts into parts of a grander design, a landscape-sized puzzle where the marks on the stones were the key to reading the entire system. These carved spheres were more than just beautiful objects. They were interactive components in a ritual landscape, their mysterious glyphs acting as instructions for a ceremony we have forgotten, a silent guide to understanding a world written in stone and sky. A massive serpent of earth and stone slumbers beneath the English countryside. The great stone circle of Avebury is not a simple ring, but a sprawling complex of multiple circles and avenues that, when seen from above, reveals a breathtaking secret. One compelling theory suggests the entire landscape was designed as a colossal geoglyph, a serpentine figure over 900 meters long. The winding West Kennet Avenue, with its pairs of standing stones, forms the serpent's undulating body, leading directly to a smaller, circular sanctuary known as the Cove, which represents its powerful, coiled head. This entire creature appears to be passing directly through the heart of the massive outer stone circle, a cosmic snake intertwined with a symbol of eternity. What could such a monumental earth sculpture have meant to the people who built it? This was likely no mere representation of a common animal. On such a grand scale, the serpent almost certainly represented a deity or a primal force of nature. It could have been a creation serpent, a being from mythology that carved the rivers and valleys into the land itself, its stone body mapping the very telluric energy lines or dragon paths that some believe pulse through the earth. Alternatively, it may have been a guardian spirit, its presence woven into the landscape to protect the sacred space within the circle. Animated overlays bring this theory to life, showing the serpent's form emerging from the familiar map, its stone body glowing against the green fields. This concept of a landscape zodiac, where entire geographical features are arranged to represent celestial or mythological figures, is found in other parts of Britain, suggesting our ancestors saw their entire world as a canvas for their most profound beliefs. To walk the West Kennet Avenue today is to walk along the spine of a sleeping giant, a reminder that the greatest symbols were not always carved onto stones, but were sometimes built from the land itself, a permanent prayer etched into the very soil. A stone circle can be more than a symbol. It can be the symbol itself. On the windswept Isle of Lewis in Scotland's Outer Hebrides, the Callanish stones rise from the peat like a petrified forest of ancient giants. Their arrangement is not a simple circle. It is a cross, a central ring with arms reaching out to the cardinal directions and an avenue of stones leading to the north. This grand design is not merely decorative. It is a colossal instrument tuned to the most complex rhythm in the sky, the slow, majestic dance of the moon. While other sites track the dependable sun, Callanish is a temple to the moon's deeper, more mysterious cycles. Its primary alignment is not to a daily sunrise, but to an event that occurs just once every 18.6 years. This is the lunar standstill, the point where the moon, in its wobbling orbit, reaches its most extreme southerly rising point, skimming the horizon before disappearing behind the distant hills. On that rare night, from within the circle, you would witness a celestial spectacle. The full moon would appear to glide directly down the stone avenue, its silvery light perfectly framed by the dark, silent sentinels. The entire site acts as a symbolic calendar of almost unimaginable patience. It marks a cycle longer than a generation, a rhythm so slow that a person might witness its climax only once or twice in their entire life. This was not about planting crops. This was about something far more profound. It was about understanding time on a cosmic scale, about paying homage to a powerful, unpredictable celestial force. Could the stones themselves hold smaller, more intimate carvings? The relentless Atlantic winds and driving rains have scoured these nice pillars for thousands of years, smoothing their surfaces to a gray sheen. It is entirely possible that finer symbols, spirals or cup marks like those in Ireland, were once etched here, their messages slowly erased by the elements. But at Callanish, the primary inscription was made not with a hammerstone, but with the stone's own silhouettes. Time-lapse photography reveals the magic, showing the moon's slow arc as it weaves between the pillars, its light and shadow playing across the ancient landscape. Animated diagrams of the 18.6-year cycle illustrate the moon's migrating path, a pendulum swing in the sky that these builders not only understood but built a permanent stone prayer to witness. They created a machine to measure a celestial heartbeat, a place where humanity could stand in the wind and watch the moon obey an ancient, silent law. From the stone calendars of Scotland, we travel to the mythic dawn of Chinese civilization. Etched onto stone reliefs from the Han Dynasty over 2,000 years ago is a powerful image of creation itself. This is Fuxi and Nuwa, the serpent-bodied deities who are the divine ancestors of all humanity. They are depicted facing one another, their human torsos rising proudly, while below their waists, their bodies transform into two massive, powerful serpents, their tails intimately and perfectly intertwined in a tight, spiraling coil. They hold the tools of creation in their hands. Fuxi grasps the carpenter's square, the symbol of order and measured space, while Nuwa holds the compass, the instrument of the heavens and perfect circles. This is not just a story of how people were made. It is a profound statement about the nature of reality. The intertwined serpent tails represent the fundamental duality and unity of the cosmos, the dance of yin and yang. Fuxi embodies the masculine, celestial principle of yang, while Nuwa is the feminine, earthly force of yin. Their union is the creative act that brings the entire universe into being, a balance of complementary forces. Their legacy is the very foundation of society. They are credited with teaching humanity how to write, replacing knotted cords with a true writing system. They established the rules of marriage, creating social order. They are said to have invented music, giving humanity the gift of art and culture. These Han Dynasty carvings are not the beginning of the story, but a continuation. They are the crystallization of a cultural memory that reaches back into China's deep megalithic past. The serpent, as a symbol of life force, regeneration, and cosmic power, was venerated for millennia before these reliefs were carved. The image of Fuxi and Nuwa frozen in stone is a powerful answer to a universal question. How did our world come to be? Their answer was not a single god speaking from the void, but a sacred union, a balance of opposites, whose intertwined bodies became the very spiral of life, giving order to chaos and breath to the human race. These fluid figures seemed to dance across the cave walls, their limbs curved in graceful, arcing motions. Located in the heart of Egypt's Gilf Kebir Plateau, a place now defined by absolute desert, the Cave of the Swimmers presents a scene that feels impossible. The art shows human forms captured mid-stroke, as if suspended in water, their bodies painted with a sense of motion that is both elegant and deeply strange. They are not static portraits, but snapshots of action preserved for millennia in a shelter of stone. This is the Sahara, but not as we know it. These carvings are a direct and powerful testament to a time when this vast emptiness was a verdant savanna, a green world crisscrossed by rivers and dotted with lakes. The Swimmers are not a work of fantasy, they are a memory, a record of a lost world painted by people who lived, fished, and yes, swam in these waters. To stand in that cave today with the desolate, hyper-arid landscape stretching out in every direction is to feel the full, shocking weight of climatic change. Satellite images reveal the brutal truth, a land now scraped bare by sun and wind, its ancient riverbeds visible only from space as ghostly channels in the sand. So why would a culture so dependent on water for survival choose to depict this act of swimming in such a sacred place? One compelling theory suggests these figures are not merely literal representations of daily life. In many shamanic traditions, water is a powerful metaphor for the spirit world, a fluid realm one must navigate to access knowledge or healing. The swimming posture, with its rhythmic, flowing movements, could depict a trance state, the sensation of the soul journeying through an ethereal plane. The artists may have been illustrating a spiritual practice, using the familiar, life-giving act of swimming to symbolize a voyage into the consciousness itself. These figures, then, are more than historical records. They are a bridge between two worlds, the physical reality of a green paradise lost and the eternal, inner world of the human spirit, forever swimming in the depths of the unknown. Back inside the shadowed chambers of Mnajdra, a particular stone panel seems to hold a piece of the night sky frozen in limestone. Unlike the grand, flowing spirals of its neighbors, this carving is a constellation of its own, a collection of small, deep cup marks and a series of faint, connecting spirals arranged in a distinct, asymmetrical pattern. It is not overtly representational, yet its configuration feels deliberate, as if the random scattering of stars has been carefully mapped onto the rock. The theory is as compelling as it is controversial. Some researchers in the field of archaeoastronomy propose that this specific arrangement is a star chart, a prehistoric planisphere. They suggest the pitted marks could correspond to the bright stars of Orion's belt, with the spiraling lines tracing the form of the surrounding constellation, or perhaps even the tight, glittering cluster of the Pleiades. This interpretation transforms the entire temple into something even more profound. If the temple's architecture is aligned to capture the sun's light at the solstices, then a star chart carved on its walls would complete a cosmic picture honoring both the solar and the stellar realms. The narrative becomes breathtakingly holistic. The same people who built a machine to track the sun may have also carved a permanent map of their ancestral stars, believing their gods resided in those specific, sparkling points of light. The challenge, however, lies in the stars themselves. The night sky changes over millennia due to the slow wobble of Earth's axis, a phenomenon known as precession. The stars that were visible from Malta 7,000 years ago were not in the exact same positions as they are today, while computer models can rewind the celestial clock, proving a direct match between these static pits and a specific ancient star pattern is incredibly difficult. Mainstream archaeology often views such claims with skepticism, pointing out that the human brain is wired to find patterns, especially in abstract art. They argue that these carvings are far more likely to be powerful but non-literal ritual symbols, representing concepts of fertility or the spirit world rather than serving as a functional astronomical guide. The beauty of this mystery lies in its duality. Through a graphic overlay, we can project the stars of Orion onto the weathered stone, and for a moment, the pattern clicks into place with an uncanny resonance. It feels right, yet we can never be certain if we are seeing a true map of the heavens or simply projecting our own desire for order onto the sacred marks of a people whose understanding of the cosmos was woven from both precise observation and deep, unknowable myth. 3 colossal pillars of millstone grit stand in a silent row across the Yorkshire countryside. The Devil's Arrows are monuments of sheer, raw power, their weathered surfaces towering over the flat landscape. But it is the sides of these stones that hold the true enigma. Carved from top to bottom are long, deep, vertical grooves, channels so straight and precise they look as if they were sliced into the rock by a giant's claw. These are not the gentle curves of spirals or the random pitting of age. They are stark, deliberate, and unnervingly artificial. The effort to create them is almost unimaginable. Using only stone mauls, artisans had to pound away countless chips of this incredibly hard rock, carving these deep, clean channels that run for feet down the stone's face. Why would anyone invest such immense labor into carving lines that seem to serve no obvious structural purpose? One practical theory suggests these grooves were ancient industrial sites. Perhaps they were used for polishing and sharpening stone axes, their smooth, vertical surfaces ideal for honing tools to a razor's edge over generations. Another idea proposes they were part of a larger, long-vanished structure. Wooden beams could have been slotted into these grooves, connecting the stones with a platform or a roof, transforming them from solitary monoliths into the framework of a grand, enclosed temple. Yet the grooves feel more symbolic than practical. Their relentless verticality is a powerful visual cue. They could be a representation of flowing water, a prayer for rain carved directly into the Earth's bones. Alternatively, they might depict bolts of lightning, capturing the moment of divine power connecting the stormy sky with the ground below. In this sense, the grooves become a ladder, a conduit between the world of humans and the realm of the gods. Detailed shots reveal the grooves' incredible depth, their edges still sharp despite millennia of wind and rain. Speculative reconstructions show how wooden beams might have fitted perfectly, creating a skeletal architecture around the stones, or how water from a rain shower would channel down the grooves, animating the stone with glistening lines of liquid light. Were these stones functional tools, symbolic gateways, or both? The grooves remain, a stark and enduring question mark carved in stone. A silent name echoes from a stone coffin buried for 2,000 years. Across South India and Sri Lanka, the smooth, domed surfaces of ancient megalithic burial sites are marked with a crisp, angular script. This is Tamil Brahmi, the earliest known form of writing for the Tamil language, and its appearance on these tombs marks a pivotal moment in history. The script itself is elegant and direct, its characters formed from a combination of straight lines and sharp angles, a system adapted from the earlier Brahmi script of North India, but refined to perfectly capture the distinct sounds of the ancient Tamil tongue. These are not long, epic poems or royal proclamations. They are profoundly human messages, short funerary inscriptions that serve as the final, public record of a life. A typical inscription might read simply, "This is the stone of Kuvaran," or "A tenant farmer named Sathan." In these few carved words, we hear the voice of an individual, not just a king or a priest, but a donor, a family member, someone who lived and died and was remembered. The historical importance of these brief texts is immense. They prove that literacy had taken root in this region by at least the 3rd century before the Common Era, transforming our understanding of ancient South Indian society. This was not an isolated, illiterate culture. The ability to read and write was present, used to mark property, identity, and social status even in death. The inscriptions reveal a complex, stratified society with clear divisions of labor, mentioning not just warriors and chieftains, but also potters, blacksmiths, and merchants. Perhaps most tellingly, they provide rock-solid evidence of Tamilakkam's integration into a vast economic world. One famous pottered inscription from a port city bears the name Koran, a Tamil man alongside a shipment of precious silk. This single word, scratched onto broken pottery, connects the megalithic burials of the interior directly to the bustling wharves of the Indian Ocean. These stones were not in points, they were nodes in a network that stretched across the water to Rome, to Egypt, and to Southeast Asia, a network where Tamil traders exchanged pepper, pearls, and gems for Roman gold. The script on the tomb was the signature of a people who were already looking outward, their identities forever carved in stone and woven into the fabric of the ancient world. The vertical edge of a standing stone becomes a page, its message written not in curves but in a stark, geometric cipher. This is Ogham, an alphabet of straight lines, a language of slashes and notches that seems to whisper secrets to the stone itself. Each letter is formed by a specific number of short, straight lines or scores, carved directly across or alongside the sharp edge of the stone. To read it, you run your finger along the stone's corner, feeling the language as a series of tactile bumps and breaks. A single score on the right of the edge might represent the letter B, while 5 scores diagonally across the corner could mean an A. It looks less like writing and more like a tally system, a cryptic code meant for initiates. Most of the several hundred surviving Ogham stones are memorials, simple but powerful testaments to individuals who lived during the early centuries of Christianity in Ireland, Wales, and parts of Scotland. A typical inscription might read, in essence, of so and so, son of so and so. They are the ancient equivalents of a modern headstone, marking territory and lineage. Yet the script itself feels far older than its early Christian usage. Many scholars believe its roots dig deep into a pre-literate pagan past. One compelling theory suggests Ogham began not as a public alphabet, but as a cryptic sign language, a system of gestures used for silent communication or for recording information without the knowledge of Roman authorities. Another idea proposes it was originally a tally system for tracking goods, lineages, or astronomical cycles, its simple lines perfectly suited for notching on wood or stone. When you see a clear photograph of an Ogham stone, the pattern clicks into place. The main edge of the stone acts as a central spine, with the groups of lines branching off to the left, right, or directly across it. An animation can bring this to life, highlighting each group of scores and translating them into the corresponding letter, slowly spelling out a name like Maki Kori, which means son of the spear. The very act of reading it feels like solving a puzzle, a direct connection to a mind that chose to communicate not with pictures of gods or spirals, but with the pure, abstract language of mathematics and line. Why choose such a stark and unusual system? Was it a deliberate act of cultural preservation, a way to record a native language in a form that was uniquely their own, untouched by the Latin script of incoming missionaries? Or was it, perhaps, a sacred script, its very form imbued with a mystical power that straight lines held over the curved letters of other alphabets? The stones stand silent, their edges inscribed with the names of the dead in a code that feels both utterly simple and profoundly mysterious. These symbols of protection and power were carved not for the dead, but for a living bridge to the heavens, Far to the east, in the sun-baked heart of ancient Mesopotamia, rose the ziggurat, a colossal mountain of baked brick built by human hands. The most legendary of these was the Etemenanki in Babylon, a towering structure believed by many to be the inspiration for the biblical Tower of Babel. But its true power was not just in its staggering height, it was in the symbols that armored its walls. The facade was a shimmering tapestry of glazed, colored bricks, forming images of fantastic beasts. Most prominent was the Mushasu, a creature of awe-inspiring hybridity. It had the powerful body of a lion, the long, serpentine neck and head of a dragon, and the formidable talons of an eagle. This was not a monster of chaos, but a sacred being, the symbolic companion of the god Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon. Why would such a terrifying creature be given such a prominent place on this sacred staircase to the gods? These symbols served a vital apotropaic function. This complex word simply means they were believed to possess the power to ward off evil. They were divine guardians, a spiritual security system etched into the very fabric of the building. Their terrifying visages were meant to scare away malevolent spirits and demonic forces that might attempt to defile the sacred space. The ziggurat itself was the axis mundi, the center of the world, a literal connection point between the earthly realm and the divine. It was the mountain of the gods, a man-made peak in a flat river valley. The Mushasu dragons and other symbolic creatures were the guardians of that threshold. They protected the pathway so that priests could ascend to perform rituals that maintained the cosmic order, ensuring the gods would continue to bestow their favor upon the city and its people. Digital reconstructions bring this vision to life, showing the ziggurat not as a dusty ruin, but as a gleaming, multi-tiered pyramid, its blue and gold bricks shining under the desert sun, the dragons coiling around its gates with a fierce protective energy. A detailed close-up reveals the individual scales of the serpentine neck, the fierce intelligence in its eyes, each tile placed with a profound belief in its power. This shifts our understanding of ancient symbols once more. They were not passive art, they were active. They were seen as living, breathing defenses, their carved forms imbued with a spiritual force that shielded the most sacred junction in the universe, the point where heaven met earth. Even the most weathered stones can reveal their secrets under the right light. On the great Sarsen pillars of Stonehenge, a story is told not in grand spirals, but in the stark, minimalist outlines of weapons. These are the carvings of daggers and axes, so faint and eroded that they remained hidden from the naked eye for centuries. It took the precision of modern laser scanning to finally expose them, the technology mapping every microscopic contour of the stone's surface and revealing these schematic forms as clear as the day they were carved. The daggers are depicted with triangular blades and distinct hilts, while the axes are simple, elegant outlines of blades that would have been mounted on wooden hafts. They are not chaotic graffiti, but deliberate symbols placed with purpose on some of the most important stones in the entire circle. What does it mean to find weapons carved onto this temple of the sun? The leading theory points directly to power and status. This was the early Bronze Age, a time when such metal objects were not common tools, but rare and precious items, symbols of a new social order. The carvings could mark the final resting places of powerful chieftains or revered warriors, their status immortalized in stone. Alternatively, they might represent a specific cult or a powerful family group that was instrumental in the construction or use of Stonehenge, their emblem being the very tools that defined their authority. The connection to real objects is undeniable. When you see a laser scan of one of these carved daggers placed side by side with a photograph of an actual Bronze Age dagger excavated from a burial mound in the same region, the resemblance is uncanny. The stone outline perfectly mirrors the shape of the precious metal original, a direct link between the symbol and an object of immense real-world value. These carvings transform our understanding of Stonehenge. It was not only an astronomical observatory, but also a place deeply intertwined with human power, lineage, and perhaps the veneration of the elite. The laser imagery brings these ghostly weapons back to life, showing them not as violent imagery, but as a silent, Stone Age language of prestige, forever linking the celestial ambitions of the circle with the earthly authority of the chieftains who commanded its construction. While the weapons of Stonehenge spoke of earthly power, the stones of southern Spain whisper of a different kind of guardian. The Antiquera dolmens are not just tombs, they are colossal cathedrals of the Copper Age, their chambers so vast they feel like man-made caves. Inside, the supporting stones are etched with a unique artistic language. You will not find the fluid spirals of Ireland here. This art is stark and geometric, a world of zigzag lines, nested triangles, and pitted dots arranged in rigid grids. Most haunting are the stylized anthropomorphic figures, human shapes reduced to their essence. A simple vertical line for the body, a circle or oval for the head, and sometimes just a pair of eyes staring out from the stone. Their simplicity is their power. They feel less like portraits and more like concepts of beings, perhaps ancestors or deities watching over the sacred space. These symbols were deeply local, the sacred vocabulary of the Iberian people who built here over 5,000 years ago. One compelling theory is that these figures served as permanent guardians of the tomb. They were the eternal sentinels, carved directly onto the bones of the earth to protect the souls within from whatever dangers lurked in the afterlife. Their geometric patterns might represent a symbolic barrier, a wall of power that malevolent spirits could not cross. But the true genius of Antiquera is how it integrates this symbolic world with the natural one. The largest dolmen, Menga, is not randomly oriented. Its entire entrance corridor is perfectly aligned to a singular, dramatic mountain peak on the horizon, La Peña de los Enamorados. This mountain itself looks like a giant sleeping human figure, a natural geoglyph watching over the landscape. The builders did not just carve their deities onto stone. They saw a deity in the mountain itself, and they built their tomb to forever face it to capture its spirit. Imagine the moment of a burial, the body carried into the deep, dark chamber, passing these carved guardian figures, all leading the eye towards that distant, sleeping giant framed perfectly in the entrance. The entire site becomes a bridge between the human world of symbols and the divine world of nature, a permanent alignment of stone, art, and earth that turned a tomb into a gateway. Our final symbol is not carved in stone but hammered from silver, a mysterious treasure pulled from a Danish peat bog. The Gundestrup cauldron is a masterpiece of Iron Age artistry, its panels a swirling narrative of gods, rituals, and a cosmology we can only partially grasp. Imagine holding a single, massive silver bowl, its surface divided into rich, detailed panels both inside and out. On one outer plate, a majestic, cross-legged figure commands attention. He has the antlers of a stag, and in his hands he holds a torque, the Celtic symbol of nobility, and a serpent with the head of a ram. This is widely believed to be Cernunnos, the lord of the animals, a god of the forest, fertility, and the cycle of life and death. The ram-headed serpent itself is a powerful hybrid, perhaps symbolizing the untamed forces of nature under the god's control. Other panels show rows of infantrymen carrying spears and shields, marching in unison, while a figure immerses a smaller, seemingly helpless man headfirst into a barrel, a scene that could depict a sacrifice or a brutal initiation rite. The animals are both real and mythical. You see elephants, creatures completely foreign to Northern Europe, alongside boars, deer, and dolphins, suggesting a worldview that incorporated tales from distant lands. But the most iconic image is on the inner central plate. A giant figure, likely a deity, triumphantly holds aloft two smaller warriors by their belts, while below, a line of cavalrymen and a row of figures blowing carnaxes, the ancient Celtic war trumpets, create a scene of divine judgment or heroic celebration. What story is being told across these shimmering silver pages? Many interpretations see the cauldron as a visual epic of Celtic mythology, depicting scenes of sacrifice, rebirth, and the journey to the other world. The cauldron itself was a powerful symbol of regeneration and plenty in Celtic lore, a vessel that could restore life. The horned god Cernunnos embodies this cycle, his antlers shedding and regrowing each year, a permanent emblem of death and resurrection. The warriors and their rituals may represent the human component of this cycle, the sacrifices required to ensure the land's continued fertility and the tribe's survival. The presence of exotic animals could map a cosmic vision, a menagerie of creatures from all corners of the known and spiritual worlds. Animated explanations bring these complex scenes to life, showing how the panels might be read in sequence, telling a story of a hero's journey, a god's power, and the eternal exchange between this world and the next. The Gundestrup cauldron represents the pinnacle of this symbolic language. Its creators may have been pre-literate, but they were far from primitive. They conveyed a sophisticated and complex understanding of their universe, not with words, but with a breathtaking visual poetry in silver, a final, magnificent testament to the ancient urge to make the mysterious tangible and to preserve a vision of the cosmos in a form meant to last for eternity. From the cosmic spirals of Newgrange to the silent guardians of Antiquera, these 30 symbols form a global tapestry of human wonder. We have journeyed past serpents carved into the earth, traced the lines of forgotten scripts on clay and wood, and stood before stones that map the slow dance of the moon. Each mark, whether a simple cup or an intricate labyrinth, represents a profound and universal human impulse. Our ancestors, separated by vast oceans and millennia, all felt the same deep need to make their world understandable, to carve their questions and their beliefs into the most permanent canvas they could find. They were not just decorating stone, they were building bridges to the divine, charting the heavens, and attempting to speak directly to the future, to us. This shared drive to create meaning, to leave a mark that whispers, "I was here, and this is what I believed," connects us across an unimaginable gulf of time. We are linked to those ancient artists by the same curiosity that now leads us to decipher their work, so we leave you with one final thought. If you could stand before the carver of just one of these stones and ask a single question, which symbol would you choose? What is the one mystery you would want them to solve for you? Tell us in the comments which carving captured your imagination and what you would ask its creator. And if you want to continue these journeys into the heart of historical mysteries, be sure to